How do I fix RC FPV binding issues? If you are experiencing binding issues between your remote control transmitter and your first-person view drone, you are not alone. This is a common challenge in the world of remote control operations. Let's go through some steps to help you troubleshoot and resolve these issues effectively. First, check the compatibility of your transmitter and receiver. Ensure they support the same protocol. For instance, if your transmitter uses the D16 protocol, your receiver must also be set to that protocol. Incorrect settings are often the root cause of binding failures. Next, follow the binding procedure specific to your equipment. Typically, you need to put your receiver into bind mode, which is usually indicated by a flashing light. Then, activate bind mode on your transmitter. Once binding is successful, the light on the receiver should change to a solid color. After this, save your settings and reboot your flight controller or drone to confirm the binding is registered. Now let's inspect the wiring and connections. Make sure all wires between the receiver and flight controller are secure and correctly connected. Look for bent pins, cold solder joints, or loose connectors. If you have a multimeter, use it to check for continuity. Faulty wiring can prevent successful communication. Updating firmware is another important step. Mismatched firmware between your transmitter, receiver, and first-person view goggles can lead to binding problems. Check for updates and install the latest versions for all components. Some devices requiring matching firmware versions to bind properly. If you still cannot bind, consider resetting and reconfiguring your settings. Back up your current settings and perform a full reset on both the flight controller and transmitter. Then, start fresh with the binding process. Configuration errors can often lead to binding issues. Next, check for any interference or hardware faults. Temporarily remove devices like smoke stoppers or power filters to rule out interference. If possible, test with a different receiver or transmitter to identify any faulty components. Finally, after binding, verify that your stick and control inputs are recognized in your flight controller software, such as Betaflight. If they are not recognized, the binding may not be complete, or there could be a wiring or configuration issue. By systematically checking compatibility, wiring, firmware, and configuration, you can resolve most first-person view binding issues. Always follow the specific binding instructions for your remote control system and use diagnostic tools like the Betaflight configurator to confirm communication between your transmitter and receiver. If problems persist, testing with alternative hardware can help pinpoint faulty components.